we spend £1 million? Well, one of the things that I and colleagues in Southampton have been investigating for the last few years is how systemic infections, common infections, accelerate the disease, Alzheimer's disease. We're interested in how it accelerates its progression. And what we found in the last year or so is that people who get these common infections, but also people with underlying inflammation, they seem to decline more rapidly over a 6-month period. So in the study we just published, we showed that people with infections declined 10 times faster than the people who hadn't got infections. So our idea is there must be a trigger at some stage in the disease where the inflammation becomes important and really starts to drive the disease. So what we would do with half of our £1 million is we would use this to set up a study to find out whether people who were beginning to show the very first signs of Alzheimer's disease, namely minimal cognitive impairment as it's called, we'd use our money to see whether indeed infections accelerated the progression into Alzheimer's disease. And of course this has pretty obvious implications because we should be able to control infections and so forth. The other important area that we would focus on is we know that when you get an infection, it communicates with the brain. That's why you feel ill when you get flu or a bladder infection or something like that. So what we need to do is we need to understand the nature of those signals that communicate between the blood and the brain. And while we have some evidence, there are clearly multiple pathways by which this might happen. So we'd use our other £500,000 to set up studies, predominantly in experimental models, to discover just what were the molecules that communicated across this barrier of the blood to the brain. And if we could switch off or turn the volume down, if you like, of these signaling pathways, then we think we'd do something useful.